Hey y'all, welcome to Life on Helton Creek. I'm Mimi, this is Pa. We're back in the hay.
Yep.
And we got our forage samples back. Well, Pa got our forage samples back.
About a week.
Took about a week.
We took them
how much were they?
$17 each sample.
$17 per sample, but that's Tennessee extension.
Yeah.
So.
And that's just the basic. For an additional $10, you could check the minerals and
we didn't do
some
that.
Other components. This is our David Thompson field. It was 25 acres. It yielded 108 rolls. So it did about 4 rolls per acre.
Is that typical?
Yeah, pretty much. We've done a little better one year, and this is the spring cut. Historically, this field has done better in the fall. We cut it kind of the end of May. Usually we don't get the best yield cutting it that early, but we get better quality. And typically we'll get a really good fall cutting. One of the cool things about doing it this way is once that grass produces a seed head in the spring, usually there's not a lot of seed heads in the fall. So it's all fodder, it's all leaf. So the dry matter was 89%, the moisture was 11%, which is pretty good. It dried down very well. You typically want it under 20 for dry hay. Really under 16 for optimum. But the crude protein on this was a little over 11.5%.
That's really good.
Yeah, we'll get to this page 2 in a second. I was just going to go through a few statistics. The ADF was 35.74. The NDF was 61.97. The NDF is the cell wall, the fibrous parts of the plant, the cellulose, the hemicellulose, and the lignin. And that's the undigestible part of the plant that controls the intake. The other really important thing that I tend to look at on this, other than the crude protein, is the RFQ, or the relative forage quality, and that's basically just a score based on a calculation of all the components combined, and this scored at a 96%.
Wow.
Or it scored 96. I don't know if it's 96% or not. So page 2.
That's pretty amazing.
So these are the statistics. These are actual percentages and numbers on page 1. Page 2 kind of gives us a chart, a scale to go, just kind of for the layman to see what's going on. And it also has the wet chemistry, the chemicals, if you paid the extra money to do that. So we've got 2 graphs on this, 2 scales, if you will. One's crude protein, and the other is TDN, or total digestive nutrients. That's basically just how good is the hay. The crude protein, I'm going to say, is largely due to the species of grass. The legumes and things like that are going to score higher on the protein. If this was a good mixture of clover, they would kind of change the scale, because it would register off the charts with protein if it had the legumes in it. And so that's why it's important to let them know exactly what you're testing. The TDN is kind of it's going to be the timing of basically the quality of the species and the timing of the cut and everything. Because the sooner you cut that, the better.
Well, like you said on the
nutrition.
other video, when you wait later, it's all in the seed head and it breaks.
And it starts the plant, the lifespan of the plant is it grows the fodder to start with, and that kind of brings in does the photosynthesis and all of that, and then then it wants to reproduce, and so it starts building that. It puts all of its energy in producing that seed,
which is its job.
And that's where all the nutrients and everything go is up into that seed. And the older the plant gets, kind of like me, the rougher it gets, the harder. So, and the older the plant gets, it's similar. Also, if it were to get rained on, it tends to make that fibrous part of it accelerate, and so that's why you don't want your hay to get wet. It's better for it to be wet when you're cutting it while it's green, because it sheds off the water. But if it gets wet after it's been laying there 3 days and you're getting ready to bale it, it tends to harden that fibrous part of it, and that reduces your quality. So
I'm learning too.
Our overall score for the David field, like I said, our crude protein was a little over 11.5%. So we are in the good range of crude protein. Low is less than 8. Medium is 8 to 10.9. Good is 11 to 13.9. And excellent is 14%. And this is primarily all fescue, and that's the way the scale is
and
set.
we are what percent?
We're 11.56, so we're just in the edge of good on this.
Gosh, I can't imagine
Our
what 14 would be.
Our TDN, or our total digestive nutrients, which is basically the quality of the hay and how much the critter is going to be able to utilize. Our sample came in at 61.17%, and low is less than 50%, medium is 50 to 55, good is 55.1 to 59.9, and excellent is anything over 60%, and we were 61.17, so we were excellent on our TDN for David's.
That's awesome.
So
there really is a science
Yeah.
to good hay.
Yeah.
This is fresh, real food, as opposed to something that might be a lot less percent or full of weeds.
Well,
or
if we did a first cutting now, it's the end of June, and maybe it's full of broom sage, things like that. That's where that NDF goes up, and that cow's eating it, but they're just not getting anything out of it.
Right.
So
no nutritional value.
They're losing body condition and things like that. And ours maintain their body condition very, very well through the summer. We've got some
fluffy
customers.
Right now.
We've got some customers that said their cattle gain weight on over the winter. So we'll move down to the next batch,
which is
the Jerry hay.
Kent's uncle.
Yeah. And I'm gonna. That's the stuff that's twine wrap. I'm gonna kind of put a little caveat in here. They recommend that you sample about 10 rolls overall to get a good composite. The way this was stacked in the barn, we could only sample 3, so I think that might have had a little bit of an effect on the results, because this was a mixed grass field, so it's got some orchard grass, it's got some fescue. One of the drawbacks of just drawing off of these 3 bales is they most likely came from a similar place in the field, and it might have been one that was primarily fescue, as opposed to a little bit of both, things like that. Our dry matter was 86%, our moisture was 14, so this was a little bit higher in case, but it's still under that official 20, and even under the optimum 16. I don't like to get it too dry, because it is less palatable, I think.
It falls apart when you try to move it too.
So anyway, his crude protein was 10.28%, ADF was 35.16, the NDF was 63.89. So very similar in those numbers, a little lower on the protein. The RFQ, the relative feed forage quality, was 94. So David's was 96. This is 94.
Comparable.
Yeah,
very much.
yeah, very, very similar. And like I said, I think this suffered from the fact that we only sampled 3 bales instead of a wider variety of it. And so on the scales, this sampled medium on crude protein at 10.28%, because the medium range is 8 to 10.9. So it was on the high end of the medium scale. just fell just a little bit short. But our TDN, our total digestible nutrients on this crop here, and it's about 20 acres, and it did 68 bales. So it did a little over 3 bales an acre, which it was off just a little. But I sprayed it to knock down the buckhorn and a couple of undesirables that was coming into the field. So it might have had that might have had an effect on the yield. I wasn't baling weeds. So, but anyway, the TDN on this sample is 61.78%, which again falls into the excellent. Anything over 60%. This was a grass hay.
That's really good.
Yep.
Uncle will be thrilled.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the third sample we took. This was strictly orchard grass, and this is from a neighboring farm that they have. I say we, all I do is drone or watch, but they have rehabbed these fields. It's amazing the work that you guys have done on this to bring it back. It was strictly sage grass, weeds, thistle, pigweed, you name it. It was full. And they have worked 3 years?
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago we drilled new seed, but.
And so they really worked hard to rehab this field. So let's hear the numbers.
It's about 15 to 16 acres all said. The creek runs through it. So there's a 7-acre field on the next to the road on the front side of the creek, and there's the rest of it's on the back. And like Darcy said, this thing was cut up into a bunch of small little paddocks and had fence rows that were grown up, and the landowner came in. He wanted to renovate it. He wanted to improve it. So he had a loader come in and knock a bunch of fences down, clear it off a bunch of places. It's about 16 acres all said. It's got a little hillside land, and it's got some pretty decent bottoms. We wound up rolling total on that field, on that farm. We did 54 bales. So we hit right around 4 bales an acre on it too.
That's
so
pretty good. What's your average?
You know, I like 3 to 4 bales each cutting. You know, so that's kind of how I base
Per
everything.
acre.
Yeah.
Hadn't we got?
Oh, we've done.
And 6?
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we did. I'm sorry.
All right, so what we tested was just the front part of the field because it was almost 100% orchard grass because I sprayed it, and so it kind of knocked all the clovers back. Like I said, we drilled this field about 2 years ago, and so this is almost exclusively orchard grass. We did 12 rolls off 7 acres, so we didn't get a very big yield off of this. But the rest of the farm kind of made up for it. But so the dry matter is 83%, the moisture is 17%. So
that's a little high.
It come in just a tick high. It's still under that
Still
acceptable
under the magic
20.
Yep.
But it's just a tad over the 16 optimum. The crude protein on it is 16.5%.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So the AFD is 35.22. The NDF is 61.34%. The relative forage quality score is 98.
Wow.
So this came in really nicely.
That's amazing.
On the scales, our 16.47% crude protein scored excellent, because anything over 14% is excellent. So the hay is actually a higher crude protein value than the ration that we're making, because it's 14%. And the TDN on this sample was 61.71%, so it fell into the excellent. So,
Wow.
so you
That's
kind of,
so
well,
cool.
yeah, so it's, this hay here is the bomb diggity. That's the reason we're feeding it to the cheeseburgers.
Yep.
And this would, this orchard grass would, it would be very desirable for horse people, because it does have the capacity of that higher protein content, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is the species of grass is kind of there's some species that, 11-12% is about the best you're ever
Right.
gonna get out of fescue.
Right.
Orchard grass, obviously, you can kick on up there, and alfalfa
That's
and things like
crazy.
that probably get up into the 20s.
I may have to pull some of that out and feed my bunnies.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
They like good hay. They like to nibble on good hay. They need all that protein and all that good stuff too. That kingfisher's working overtime over there on the creek.
So we may go ahead and pull the trigger and do some samples on the fall cut too, just to kind of give a comparison.
Oh, I think that's an excellent idea.
What the difference between the spring and the fall cut.
So, I think we put it pretty plain that the reason you do this sort of thing is so you know the nutritional value of what you're feeding your livestock. It's just good to know what you're feeding. It's also good to know because we sell a lot of hay. And so those people who are purchasing hay from us, we can tell them, proof in hand, what they're buying. So they know they're buying a good quality feed, a good quality hay for their cattle. I hope you've learned something from this. We hope you've learned something from this. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to drop them below. Send us an email and ask the questions. If I don't know, he will know. And if he don't know, he can find out. Because that's what drives him, is researching. So, I'm glad you joined us today. If you're so inclined, please hit that subscribe button below. You can hit the notification bell, know when we put out another video. And is that it for today?
That's it.
And remember, you're never alone.